Good morning, marionettes. Very early on my path of awakening and so-called truth-seeking, I realised that I was on a path which was going to end up pretty fruitless, if that was my desire and intention. And with each passing day, that notion is reiterated on a constant basis. You see, when you listen to people like Jordan Peterson, Stefan Molyneux, Sam Harris, these people are very current today, speaking philosophically, and these people can debate over a very broad spectrum of subjects because they are so prolifically read. When you are prolifically read and educated, and when you've got your own mind whereby you can decipher this information and you can produce perspectives and ideas of your own, then you would think that you could go to any one of these people and you can say to them, Sam, Stefan, Jordan, can you give me the answer to this? And they will say, well, what do you mean by answer? Well, I want to know the truth. Well, what do you mean by truth? And you're going to go, oh, for fuck's sake, I just want the answer, I just want the truth. Well, what do you mean? You just want this. And it goes on and on and on. You end up in a Chinese puzzle, because they will say to you, well, first of all, if you're coming to me wanting the answer to a certain something, then that person has to ask you from what perspective you're coming from. Because if you say, like, oh, a communist, and you go to a capitalist and you say, can you give me the answer why our country is in this particular state? And it's kind of like, hang on, we're dealing with two different ideologies. How can I be speaking from my ideology when you're asking the question from your ideology? You're never going to accept the answer because it's outside of your paradigm. And so it's a case of truth becomes really, really difficult to define. Everybody has grown up with a certain education in a certain culture, and they hold fast to certain notions and beliefs of information which they've been privy to, and they've got all this which is the basis of their knowledge, and they're asking questions based on what they already think they know. And so this is the difficulty, you see, because most people, they can only receive information which is going to be reiterating information that they already have. If, for instance, a communist asks a capitalist about a certain something, then what's the likelihood of the communist being able to accept what the capitalist says? It's going to be no. That ain't right. That's not what I believe. That's not what my culture is born out of. And so what you're saying is a truth for you. It isn't a truth for me. And so then we have to say, well, what is truth? Well, truth is just an expression of something that we're comfortable with, I feel. And the more information that we learn, the more elusive truth becomes. And so several years ago, when I was speaking with my viewers, and I would say, well, what brought you to my site? And they said, like, because I want to find truth. And I went, well, good luck with that one. And more increasingly, then I have to say to my viewers that if that is your endeavour, then you will never ever find and fulfil that endeavour, because the seeking of truth pertains to illusion. You will only ever find truth if you accept a certain something that is is true enough for you. And this is the whole premise of Darwinism. You know, is evolution true? Well, I mean, it seems to be true enough. We can't prove that it's absolutely categorically true, but it seems to fit in this illusion that we call life. And so therefore, the vast majority of people will accept that something is true enough, and then they will continue on the premise and basis of something being true enough. Well, I mean, if we're going to be doing that, then basically all we're doing is we're appeasing our own comfort zone. Basically, we're looking for a paradigm which will suit us, whether it's kind of like, you know, Hinduism, Buddhism, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, whatever it is. If we have a background within that information and environment and ideology, then we're going to be looking for something which sits well with that. We're not going to be looking for all the things that greatly contradict it, and because that's going to upset our apple cart. And so what can we say that when we are looking for truth then? Well, we're looking for something just to give us a certain placating. We just want appeasing, and we just want to be settled. Please, in this soup of madness, I just want a small amount of information where I can get up each day and carry out my life in a way which is not too stressful for my mind. And this is why the vast majority of people, they don't want to think too profoundly, because when you think profoundly, then you realize that you are dwelling within an arena which just has endless answers. There's no one answer to anything. There's just answers within answers and within answers. And Jordan Peterson is a classic example of this variety of mind, which has acquired a great deal of knowledge, because when he tries to explain what most people would deem to be something quite simple, just can you give me the answer to this, or just can you give me the answer to that, or where's the truth in this and that, then it just, you know, you open up a can of worms and you get deep into the realms of philosophy and psychology, and round and round and round we go. And so I asked myself, I was listening to these debates last night with these great thinkers, and I was feeling a certain feeling. And this feeling was that I asked the question, am I out of my depth listening to these intellects? And before I gave myself the answer, I listened, and I listened, and I listened. And I said to myself, well, before I decry whatever thinking ability I have, let me see what manifests out of their thinking ability. And having listened to 2 hours of, say, like Peterson and Molyneux, and Peterson and Harris, then I asked myself, what could anybody derive out of that conversation? There was no conclusion to anything. There was just a myriad of perceptions, perspectives and scenarios that were being offered up, and when one of the intellects offered up their perspective, then the other one would offer up his perspective, and that they varied greatly. And so you just can't help concluding that there is no point to all this truth seeking. There really isn't. And this is why I concluded some time ago that I can't be bothered to read other people's stuff. I can't be bothered to listen to other people's stuff. But I do. Because as I've said, it's kind of like, well, if you're an intellect, then what else do you do? You can cogitate within your own mind forever, but it is useful from time to time to listen to other perspectives, because then it strikes a spark within your own mind, and then maybe you can modify thoughts that you've had previously, and maybe if you've concluded, or you feel that you've concluded to a certain extent, then you can make modifications. And this is exactly what happens. Is all that happens is that you keep making modifications, and so when people say ignorance is bliss, I think there's a lot of truth in that, because if people are just happy with a certain amount of information, and then that's all the information that they possess as they go through life, then they will never be confronted within their mind to question what they know, because they're not interested in that. And this is why, you know, these so-called ignorant people, if you question them as to their beliefs, they just go, I just know. Well, you know, you don't just know. I mean, you can just think, but you don't just know, do you? Because if you look at knowledge and ask what it is and where it derives from, then that's when it all gets murky again. And so then we can exchange I just know for I just believe. And believing is a better terminology to use, because when you say you believe in something, what you've done is you've resigned yourself that you don't want to go any further, you don't want to look any deeper, and that information is true enough for you. And so I think that what this life is about, it's about at whatever stage in our personal acquisition of knowledge and development, we conclude that something is true enough. Because otherwise we will just go on forever and ever. And the trueness is transitory. And whatever was true for people 100 years ago and is true for people now is going to be completely different to what's true for people in 100 years' time. And so therefore we can absolutely conclude that there is no truth per se. There is only ever a subjective truth, and there's only ever a truth which is transitory. And even today, if I hold something as true, then tomorrow that truth will become an untruth. And so with this born in mind, we look at all the information, we say to ourselves, well, I mean, what are we then doing this for? And Jordan Peterson he said initially, when he commenced upon his intellectual path, his academic path, what he was doing, he was gathering up information so he could have a certain power, and he could shoot people down in conversations, and he could appear to be you know, very knowledgeable and intellectual and all this sort of thing, but what he arrived at some stage through his journey, that of course that was just all ego, and that was nonsense, and there's no benefit to that, to yourself or to anybody else. And so what you have to do is then you start having to look at acquiring knowledge for another reason. It has to be outside of your own ego. You have to be looking to discover knowledge for the actual discovering of the knowledge itself, for the sake of it, for the sake of knowledge, and for the disseminating of so-called knowledge, because the human mind has the capacity and ability to question and to seek out whatever truths there are within this domain. And so because that is our greatest attribute, then that is something that we just do, and there's no avoiding doing it for a lot of people. And so if you find that you are one of these people, then we have to at some stage have a certain resignation about why this is coming about, and about why we're doing it. And as far as I'm concerned, I say quite overtly that I've got no idea why I'm doing it. As far as I'm concerned, some people, my viewers, they pose that it's all ego, and when other people vocalise their opinions, it's their ego, and when I vocalise my opinions, it's my ego. And of course this is true to a degree, because everything that we do and say derives out of our ego. With people who have this perception that, oh, ego's this, and oh, that's ego, my friend, and oh, you're being egotistical. Look, every single thing we do derives out of the ego, and so it's just there's no point in vocalizing that perspective, because all we're doing is really, we are pointing the finger, we're accusing and we're judging the other person because whatever they're saying doesn't sit well with us, because it's struck a chord within us, and it's brought about a certain something that we want to go to. Well, if you're going just look at what's happening. One finger's pointing in that direction, three are pointing back. And so we really just have to forget all about the notion of ego. The ego just is. Just like the human spirit just is. And these are things that embody the human being, and we just have to deal with them. And so let's get over this notion of the ego being a bad thing. The ego is the thing that enables us to do absolutely everything. And so let's not demonize the very, very essence of what this human being is, you see. So I'm listening to these intellectuals, and round and round and round and round. And sometimes, like last night, there was a certain revelation which I had not come upon before. And so I asked myself, well, what is the benefit to me and to anybody else now I am privy to that information? And I will say, well, there's no benefit whatsoever, because if I ask myself, well, is it a truth? And I can say, well, no, I mean, it could be perceived as a truth by some people. Some people would accept it as being the truth, but there's many other people which absolutely wouldn't accept it as being the truth. And so has there been a benefit brought to this world via Jordan Peterson's analysis of the burnt offering? Well, no. It's just words, it's just thoughts, and if anything, all that's happened is that these thoughts have being created within the whole myriad of other thoughts. And so what it's done, it's just given us something else to think about, and something else to be confused about, because now there's another explanation as to what these biblical terminologies, phrases and parables meant. Can we ever find truth? Is there any purpose in looking for truth? No. And so what I say is to my viewers is that what I'm doing seems to be beyond my control, but I don't mind doing what I'm doing, because I derive a certain pleasure from it, because it is my mind that is driven in this certain way. And if my mind was driven to create art, then I would just be creating art, but it's not. It's driven in a way whereby I acquire information via the abstract, or via my subjectivity, via the Akashic records, or my collective unconscious, however I do it. And what I do is I then, having absorbed this information or having been given this information, then I will interpret that information, and then I will put it together the best I can in a way in which other people can understand it. And so then they will be privy to this information, and then they may in turn then have their own interpretation of it, and then reproduce something which is of benefit to somebody. But ultimately, I don't know whether any of this is of any benefit to anybody, or whether it's just the game that we play. I mean, if you look at, say, like Monopoly, for instance, can you say that the game of Monopoly is of a benefit to anybody? Well, then, of course, we have to ask the question, well, what do you mean by benefit? You know, will it learn young people about the capitalistic world that we're living in? Yes, I mean, there's a benefit there. Well, are there any other benefits? Well, I mean, what about the benefit of being entertained and enjoying spending time with family and friends? Okay, well, that's a benefit. Are there any other benefits? Well, I mean, you can go on and on and on. Because you could say that, well, one of the benefits is that I'm learning how to engage with people and play in a fair and amiable way. And, you know, I'm not, as the banker, I'm not stealing money from the bank and trying to deceive and cheat playing this game. And so therefore I can say, well, that's a benefit if I can play the game with the original rules and I'm not trying to bend the rules. And, you know, so we can go on and on and on. We can ask, like, you know, what is benefit and where does benefit derive from? And, you know, it's just like everything. When you have a particular way of thinking, then you can never ever be settled with one answer, because there's myriad of answers. And that's the joy of this life, that we will never ever know what it is that we are, what we're dwelling within, and what it is that we think we're perceiving. One day we may think that we're perceiving a certain something. The next day we'll have a eureka moment whereby, goodness me, I thought I was looking at this all along, but now it turns out I'm looking at something else. And then you have the question, well, am I going to get one of these transformatory revelations again? Am I now deluding myself as to what I think I'm looking at because, oh, I deluded myself before, evidently. And so then you question, you know, basically your sanity or even your ability to be able to look and know anything, because the stuff changes before your very eyes. Oh my goodness. Really, I just don't know what to make of it. I haven't a single clue.